So I didn't cross in the crosswalk. Is that legal?
Legal or not? Crossing the street outside of a crosswalk.
Yes, you can cross the street. However, there's a lot of laws preventing you from crossing the street, because when you do cross a street not within a crosswalk, you have to yield the right of way to oncoming traffic. So if a driver is coming down the road at you and they have to brake, they have to swerve, you've now violated the law. And at that point, you would be issued a citation. It's important that you go to crosswalks because there are traffic control signals there that traffic engineers have created to make sure that you get across the street as safely as possible. When we've stopped the majority of people jaywalking, if you would call it, the main reason they're doing it is to save time. And what we want people to think about is the 2 minutes you save today, tomorrow it could be the end of your life. If another driver doesn't see you and hits you, or if you have your family with you crossing against a not in a crosswalk or against a signal, they could also be hurt, injured, or killed.
Well, what I found out is it's actually not illegal to cross the street outside of a crosswalk. But if I were to get hit by one of these cars outside of a crosswalk, the driver would not be at fault. I would be. It's better to cross in a crosswalk because people can see you and the drivers expect you to be there. And as Lieutenant Frank pointed out, you might save a couple minutes running across the street, but those minutes might actually save your life.
You know, I don't usually wear a helmet when I ride my bike. It's hot and it smashes my hair down, and I just don't like the way it feels. Now, I know kids have to, but do I have to? Legal or not?
Legal or not? Riding a bike without a helmet.
In the state of Maryland, if you are under the age of 16, you must always wear a helmet. But here in Montgomery County, they've actually upped that age to 18. So anyone 18 or younger must always be wearing a helmet while operating a bicycle. And anyone over the age of 18 can operate a bicycle without wearing a helmet. Now, at the Park Police, we like to always encourage anyone that's going to be out bicycling or any of those type of activities to always be wearing a helmet. What we see is that it lessens your chance of serious injury should you actually be in an accident.
So I'm over 18, so I know I don't have to wear a helmet legally. But after hearing all that, I've decided, so much for the hairdo, I'm wearing a helmet.
I've been given the job to put up these signs because my neighborhood is having a block party. And I'm putting them up on different telephone poles, but I just suddenly thought, is this legal or not?
Legal or not? Putting a sign on a telephone pole.
The answer is no. Whether they're taped there or whether they're nailed, stapled, screw gun there, it causes a problem in several areas. One, if the utility contractor has to climb that pole and you have a pole that has lots of old nails and staples hanging out of it, it's very dangerous for them. The other reason is these signs are very close to the right-of-way, usually in the right-of-way, and it becomes a problem with visibility and safety of drivers and pedestrians. Or those who have lost their dog or cat, you know, I can really feel for the situation that they are in, but please stay away from the utility poles. You can post signs on your property, post on the internet on a temporary basis, and of course call animal control and if someone has picked up your dog and turned him in.
And remember that The poles belong to Pepco. And in order to be on the poles, companies like Comcast, Verizon, RCN pay a fee. And you have to have the rights to go onto these poles. These poles carry a lot of power, a lot of electricity. When Comcast and Verizon go on the poles, they have to properly ground, but Pepco supplies a multi-ground unit for the poles because electricity will pass through these poles, and it's a very dangerous thing. So it's something that you always have to be careful of, and you have to be very mindful of. You just can't go and start nailing and attaching to things because it belongs to Pepco, and you have to get an okay through them to hang. Now, even though a lot of people don't do that, but that's the right way to do things.
So I just learned that this actually is illegal, and I cannot put it up on the telephone pole. One of the reasons is all these nails that are left here end up hurting the utility workers as they have to climb the poles. Look at this one here, that could impale you. Then there's the fact that Pepco owns the pole, and I didn't get permission to use it. And the signs can impede the vision of drivers. What I'm going to do instead is put my sign on a piece of wood and put it on the public right-of-way. Now I just made my sign. I'm going to just put it right here. If the sign's going to be up for more than 2 weeks, I have to get a permit. And don't forget to remove them once you're done.
I wonder if that fire pit's too close to the house. Is that legal or not?
Legal or not? Backyard fire pit.
Great question. Chimeneas, fire pits, and fire bowls are very popular in Montgomery County. Recently, Montgomery County Fire Rescue Services, in conjunction with the Department of Environmental Protection and the Rockville City Fire Marshal, along with the Gaithersburg City Fire Marshal, came up with guidelines for the safe and appropriate use of fire pits, fire bowls, and chimeneas. A couple of the highlights would include being of appropriate age, 18 years of age or older, having permission of the landowner to utilize this type of device. It's very important for the homeowner to realize that we don't want them to build something and use it themselves. Rather, we would rather them purchase the chimenea, fire pit, or fire bowl from a local store and use it in accordance with the guidelines that come with the appliance. We do ask that you keep these appliances at least 15 feet away from any structure, any building. We also ask that you don't use it on a surface that can burn, i.e. a deck. We also ask that you keep a clear area around the chimenea, fire pit, or fire bowl, clear of combustibles of at least 3 feet. Mulch can catch fire, so be mindful of where you set up this appliance. And we also want to make sure that you have a constant flow of water available, perhaps a hose or something close by that's readily available. And we want to encourage, absolutely encourage every user to be mindful of proper disposal techniques for the ashes. Our data supports a lot of structure fires that occur in our community as a result of the improper disposal of the ashes.
So what I learned was the fire pit has to be at least 15 feet from the house. The chairs and the people have to be at least 3 feet away from the fire pit. And we have to have water nearby. And I have to remember to have a safe place to put the ashes.
For more information on backyard and recreational fires, please go to montgomerycountymd.gov/fire rescue.
You know, a week ago, this large branch came off of this tree, and now I'm concerned that this tree is going to come down and I want to cut it down. I want to know, is it legal for me to do this in my own yard?
Legal or not, trimming trees without a permit.
Moving and trimming a tree in Montgomery County is a very timely question right now because we all have many trees and things and debris in our yard. The only issue usually comes up is if that tree is in the county right-of-way or in the state right-of-way. In that case, you do have to get a permit, and you should really contact the state and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, and they will let you know if they need to send a state arborist out to trim a tree that's in the right-of-way. That's a new regulation, a new law in the last year for any trimming or taking down a tree in a right-of-way. If the tree is on your own property, of course, you can go ahead and trim or cut down that tree. If the tree on your property or in the right of way, of course, is on any kind of utility lines, that type of thing, then please call Pepco or BGE or Allegheny Power and find out, let them know and let them handle the situation if it's on the utility lines. You always have to be aware, because if you take that tree down and you cause injury or property damage on another property owners, then you may be liable for that. So if it's bigger than what you think you can handle, please call a contractor. Otherwise, just exercise due care when taking down or trimming that tree.
So I don't need a permit to cut this tree down in my own yard. But obviously, if there are power lines involved, which I don't have, you do need to call the utility company. So if this tree were out in the public right-of-way, I'd have to call the county or perhaps even the Parks Department.
Look at that. And there's another one, someone using their cell phone. I thought we had a law that you couldn't use a cell phone while driving, but I see people do it all the time. I wonder if it's legal or not to use the phone while driving.
Legal or not, talking on a handheld cell phone while driving.
It is illegal in the state of Maryland to use a handheld cell phone by any driver. However, the law has been made such that using a handheld cell phone is a secondary offense. So the only way I can enforce it as a police officer is if I see a primary traffic offense occur. For example, if someone runs a stop sign while they're on a cell phone, I can pull them over, issue them a citation for running the stop sign, and issuing them a citation for using their cell phone. If they had stopped at the stop sign, I could not stop them, just merely because they were on the cell phone. Now that changes for our newer drivers and our younger drivers. Under the age of 18, you are prohibited from using a handheld cell phone and a Bluetooth type device. Also, for anyone on a provisional license, they are also prohibited from using either a handheld phone or a Bluetooth device. The legislature gets together and they have a lot of committees and they discuss the traffic safety laws. They get recommendations from the state highway, from local law enforcement, and also from the private sector, from the citizens, on what they'd like to see as laws. And when they enacted this one, based on the totality, the legislature felt that this should be a secondary offense. Now, over time, because of incidents, you may see a push by law enforcement, by citizens, to change this so it becomes a primary offense. I will tell you, it would be a good thing if it was a primary offense, so that we could, at the very least, educate the public, be able to pull someone over and say, "Sir or ma'am, you're on the cell phone. It's distracting you from what you need to do. Please stop it and understand the law." And worst case scenario, maybe we have to issue a citation.
So I found out it was illegal to use a handheld cell phone while driving, but only when it's related to another offense. For example, if I run the stop sign I'm about to come to and get in an accident while on the phone, I can be fined. But if I drive and don't get into any accidents, I can't be cited. It's kind of a strange law. It seems like our lawmakers are constantly reevaluating this law. I don't think I'll use my cell phone. There's too much at stake. But look what I found. I think I'll use this.
I've always wondered, is good graffiti really against the law? What if it's art and people like it? It seems a shame to paint over it.
Legal or not, graffiti.
If you engage in graffiti or tagging or leaving behind a footprint or handprint in wet cement, you can be charged with malicious destruction of property. And the penalty is based on the damage to that property. So if the value of the damage is determined to be $500 or less, then the penalty is up to 60 days in jail and or up to a $500 fine. If the damage is $500 or over, your penalty is up to 3 years in jail and or up to a $2,500 fine. So regardless of the quality of the artwork, you are committing a crime unless you have the permission of the property owner or unless you are creating this artwork on your own property.
So while I may think this is gorgeous, apparently lawmakers disagree. It's destruction of property unless the artist gets permission to paint it. Now, if you see graffiti that needs to be removed, you can call GRAB at 301-607-4772.
I know. You know, whenever I take my dog for a walk, I always have him on a leash. But out here in my front yard, I don't have him on a leash, and it's not fenced in. Legal or not?
Legal or not, letting a dog off leash.
On your premises, your dog is allowed to be off of leash, but it must be within your verbal command. So if you give a command to the dog, it has to be able to hear you so that it knows to come in or it can obey you. But here on park property, we do not allow any dogs off leash. It doesn't really matter how many obedience schools they've been to and how well they did in the classes. Your dog is not allowed to be off leash on park property outside of our designated dog parks. Because they are public and open to everyone, you have kids running around, we do suggest and strongly, suggest to dog owners that they do pick up behind their dogs. And we do, in several of our parks, provide plastic bags to pick up your dogs, and there are trash cans at every park to dispose of that. And picking up behind your dogs is important environmentally because we do have stream valleys in the park system, and that runs off into our stream valleys and into our watershed, and we don't want those pollutants. Health-wise, for the younger kids that are playing in the park, they're stepping in it and tracking that inside your home, and you can introduce all kinds of bacteria and infections when you get into those situations where you aren't picking up behind your pet. I mentioned the dog parks, and we have 5 in Montgomery County that are run by Park and Planning, but there are also more dog parks that are run by the city, like the city of Rockville and the city of Gaithersburg also have dog parks where you can take your dog and it can socialize and interact with other dogs off the leash. They are separated by small dog and large dog, so you want to be aware of what type of dog is in which type of dog park, but they're free to run off leash and socialize with other dogs.
So I just found out that it is legal for me to have my dog in my front yard off a leash. But I'd probably feel more safe if he were on one, if I wasn't in a fenced area. But better yet, I found out about some great dog parks. Come on, Mo, let's go.
I don't live on a farm, but can I keep a chicken as a pet in my backyard? Do I need a license? Is it legal or not?
Legal or not, keeping a chicken in your backyard.
There is no law against a homeowner having a chicken. You get a rooster into the mix, and then your neighbors are going to start to hear about it, because that will cause a disturbance problem, and then the police will come knocking on your door. But if somebody wants to have a chicken or chickens, anywhere in Montgomery County, actually, there is no regulation against it. But before we go any further, normally people do not like chickens in the house. So then you have to build, or somebody wants to have a chicken coop to put these chickens in. There's the rub. Because where chickens live, it becomes quite messy. And then it becomes a health and safety issue. And so there are regulations as to the chicken coop and where the chicken coop can go. And this would be the same for ducks or for any pen that's going to contain or house an animal or fowl. So this would pertain to any animal or fowl in Montgomery County. It's really regulations for the housing and the structures for that, as far as you still may be able to have the animal, but it's the placement of the structure. The structure itself, so it protects your neighbors, is limited to, it cannot be closer than 25 feet to your property line, and then no closer than 100 feet to the next closest dwelling. So the county's not so worried so much about the effect it might have on you since it's your animal, but we are concerned about the neighbor next door or behind you, that it is going to have a negative effect on them. So the coop or pen would need a permit from Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services, and it would have to be a minimum of 25 feet from the property line and 100 feet from that next closest adjacent dwelling.
So I can have a chicken as a pet, but I have to follow regulations about its coop and make sure the structure is away from the house. And of course, if I get a rooster, I have to be aware that it may keep my neighbors up.
What Brian sent me this time. We got some fountains, some little cracklers, and sparklers. They seem pretty innocent. But I wonder if I can light off any fireworks in Montgomery County.
Legal or not, fireworks.
It is confusing to our community respective to the use of fireworks. And this is in part because jurisdictions around us have different requirements than Montgomery County, Maryland. But I want to be clear. The use of fireworks in Montgomery County is illegal. It is illegal to store, to sell, to discharge, to dispose in any way, shape, or form, any firework in this county. Here's some footage that shows some of the dangers of fireworks.
As you can see, once it comes in contact with the kid's clothing, it doesn't take a lot to burn it.
Each year on July 4th, nationally, more fires are reported than on any other day. And fireworks account for more than half of those fires, which is more than any other cause of fires in the United States. The few seconds of pleasure illegal fireworks may bring are not worth the risk of injury, permanent scarring, or even starting a fire.
The next devices that we're going to detonate are all illegal, but we want to show you, for those people who choose not to obey the law,
the devastating effects of what can happen. So the first one will be detonated at the A-frame ladder, simulating somebody who is looking over top of one of these devices. Maybe it hasn't lit, or they're looking down at it, what it could do to this watermelon, simulating somebody's head. Most people are familiar with an M80 type of device. This next one, number 6, will be in a cantaloupe off here to the left. And again, simulating a body part, a hand, a small head.
Every July 4th, the county sponsors a variety of fireworks displays throughout the county. We encourage our community to go visit one of those displays to ensure a safe and a compliant community event. But again, for the viewer, we want to make sure that everyone knows that all fireworks in Montgomery County are illegal.
So Captain Fosner told us that every county has different rules with fireworks. I guess that's why it's so confusing for people. So I can buy fireworks in a different jurisdiction, but I can't even bring them into Montgomery County or light them off. So if I want to take my family and kids to go see the fireworks, I probably ought to go to a professional show. They're licensed and it's very safe.